If I had to sum up today's entire video in a single word, it would be compromise. The most unhinged boyfriends on Reddit, the most unhinged husbands, the most unhinged weddings. I have become unhinged at this point. I have made countless videos about Reddit relationship problems. Actually, no, I just made those 3. Apparently, those 3 weren't enough because I tried to pick the top posts from the Am I the A-hole subreddit, and almost all of them were about relationship problems. How have I, an unmarried 26-year-old randomly speaking into a microphone, not single-handedly ended all relationship problems at this point? So I've decided, you know what? I turn my back on those in the subreddits looking for relationship advice. And today, I present to you a specially curated version of Am I the A-hole, where instead of partners, we're going to be looking at parents. But first, welcome. My name is D'Angelo, and I am your professor of repetitioning for change, which is a very real degree that I definitely do have. Or maybe this is just me broadcasting myself talking in my room like YouTube used to be. And in today's lecture, I am actually very excited. It's been over a month since we looked at the subreddit where people come to ask, are they being the a-hole? And usually I like picking the relationship posts, but this time I wanted to see what would happen if I ignored them. Could I find hidden gems? And as it turns out, maybe some of these gems should have stayed hidden. Now, in addition to being the judge of the general a-holery of each post, we will also be grading the posts for authenticity. Because if there's one thing people love to do on Reddit, it's fabricate an elaborate story for imaginary internet points. All right, so post number 1. Am I the a-hole for asking another mom if I could help with her daughter's hair? My daughter, 9 years old, recently made a new friend. The friend is adopted, she's black, and her parents are white. We've had her around our house a lot, and we've noticed that her parents don't really know how to look after her hair. Finally, something within my realm of expertise. I feel like my hair journey has been one for the ages, honestly. Don't worry, if you win that awkward phase, you just gotta tough it out. Anyways, the Redditor says, I'm white and my husband is mixed. His black grandmother lives with us and she has pointed out the girl's hair and even tried to give her some hair care advice. I decided to bring up with the mom about her daughter's hair and that my husband's grandma was happy to give some advice or even wash or detangle and braid her hair. The mom was really upset that I would suggest she couldn't take care of her daughter properly and that I was overstepping boundaries. Oh man, some parents really do get like that. I feel like some parents seem to think that because they have had a child, that entitles them to be the ultimate authority on everything related to childcare ever. Like, on the one hand, I would never tell a parent what to do with their kid. That is your kid. You are the one who has to be there 24/7 for them. You know them more than I do. I wouldn't give unsolicited advice. However, just because you adopted someone and you are their parent now, it's really arrogant to think that without putting any effort of your own, you have enough expertise to take care of their hair properly if you don't have experience with that. Why not think to yourself, yeah, I'm her parent, so I'm going to learn. I'm going to help her, as opposed to just getting offended at the idea that you might not be doing it right. I told her that my grandma-in-law just wanted to help her daughter. She told me I was being rude and undermining her parenting. She also told me I wasn't the first person to bring this up. Oh, this just makes me sad, actually. Somebody fix that baby's hair. Like, why is this a discussion? I'm worried now because I really didn't think she would react like that. I'm worried I've ruined my daughter's new friendship. I understand why she's upset at thinking I'm trying to suggest she's not looking after her daughter properly. On the other hand, it's 2024. There's so much information out there to help her with her daughter's hair. Plus, we live in a big city where there are loads of salons she could take her daughter to. Am I the a-hole for bringing this up? I feel bad about how things transpired. All right, so first things first, we have to grade this post for authenticity. I'm gonna go ahead and give this a C. It passes. It doesn't seem fake to me. I will say it does seem very deliberately crafted to generate discussion, but honestly, this totally could have happened. Now, as far as whether this person is being the a-hole, in a vacuum, I'm going to say no. I think there are a lot of ways you could do this wrong. Like, for example, if the daughter is right there and you're like, yo, your daughter's hair is messed up. As my mom used to say, your hair is toe up from the flow up. Maybe don't do all that. But if the daughter was not present and you privately brought this up with the mom, I don't see that as being negative, even if it was like uncomfortable. I feel like the only person I actually care about in this scenario is the child. So as long as she wasn't made to feel uncomfortable, I'm kind of like, eh. But you know, I'm curious to see what people have to say. Not the a-hole, assuming the suggestion was given in private. That woman needs to learn to love her daughter more than her pride. Oof. I mean, I can't really put it any better than this. I am roughly 100% certain that if she walked into any black salon, don't be weird about this comment, y'all, you know what I mean, or beauty beauty shop. The people in it would love to help her and her daughter. Yeah, I love this comment, honestly. There are black salons. There's nothing to be weird about. I agree with this person entirely. First of all, being black doesn't mean a default hair texture. There's several different ways to have black hair, all beautiful. But if you know 0 of them, and you don't know your daughter's hair texture or how to work with it, I really do think you should either educate yourself or just take her to somebody who does know. And when you have the ability to do so, refusal to do so is very lame. I did see a couple people saying there's no a-hole here at all, saying the mom might feel defensive because it touches on something she struggled with. We've got this person saying if the daughter was white, would you have said anything to her mother? And I feel like that's the kind of thing that sounds like a smart question, but bro, either you know how to do her hair or you don't. And if you don't know how to do her hair, her being black actually does play a large factor into that because black hair is not treated as the default. Go to a hotel, you're usually going to find things there for straight hair. Google like cute, medium hairstyles, it's straight hair. Like, I really do think sometimes race has something to do with it. We can't take the high road on everything until we fix the inequality. But that's just how I feel. Those are the thoughts it brought to my mind. I would like to know how you feel about this because, I mean, there's really no wrong way of interpreting a Reddit post. Or so I thought. Until I saw this next one. Am I the a-hole for barging into an office and telling them to stop their effing kid from opening our office door? So I mean, just based off of the title, I'm leaning towards yes. Even if a child is annoying you, I'm not really sure cursing out the parents is... You know what? Let's just get the context. Every afternoon, one of the ladies in a different office brings her kid and allows him to run up and down the halls, constantly opening and closing our door. Yesterday, I had enough. I opened the door just as he slammed it and I yelled at him to stop effing opening and closing our door. I then barged into their office and told them I didn't know whose effing kid that was, but they better make him stop opening and closing our effing door. I then filed a complaint with building management. This morning, apparently, I'm the talk of their office. That's her. That's the lady. Yes, it's effing me. And maybe if you weren't such a useless F of a parent, maybe you're... Okay, bro. Maybe your kid... I'm cleaning this up a bit. Wouldn't have gotten yelled at. This kid is at least 7 or 8 and should at least be taught some effing common courtesy. I work in a law office while they're nothing but telemarketers. So, I mean, right off the bat, yikes. But wait, there's more. Edit, because apparently a bunch of people were offended. I don't give an F that they're telemarketers. The point of that final line is because of the type of people who are telemarketers. If you know, you know. I mean, first of all, you're the type of person who's a lawyer. So, or like, are you? You work in a law office, whatever that means. Obviously, being a lawyer doesn't automatically equal being a good person. I just think it's hilarious for a lawyer to try to use someone else's job against them to paint what kind of person they are, because lawyers are literally usually considered to not be good people. Anyway, this post is so weird. This post is so weird. I guess first I have to grade it for authenticity. I'm gonna give this a C-. Something about the way it's written just seems designed to inspire rage. And I'm not outraged, I'm just confused at the energy. But I was even more confused at the responses. Not the a-hole. Kids have no business in a law office unless they're relevant to a case. Parents like that need to learn a lesson. I agree, kind of. You will never be anything but not the a-hole. How is it even allowed? You did what everybody didn't dare to do, and many must thank you. I kind of think like people were interpreting this as, oh my god, this person is our people's champion, not the a-hole. People need to step up and effing parent their kid. This is kind of why I was saying like this is giving rage bait. But that being said, people's willingness to side with this extremely aggressive, belittling post just because they don't like parents or children, it's kind of odd. And also, this seems like a great time to bring up, I kind of hate the way children are talked about on Reddit. Like, oh, these disgusting crotch goblins. Anyone who dares to have a child at this point has ruined society. Parents think they deserve special, parents deserve nothing. I'm proud of the fact that I hate kids. Like, that's not what people are doing here on this post. But if you wind up on the wrong side of Reddit, you will probably have seen what I'm talking about. I just feel like Reddit's hatred for children needs to be studied, because I don't even disagree that, again, there's that weird parental hubris, there's a sense of entitlement, and people who allow their children to mess up other people's lives or days are bad people. I can't disagree. I just feel like the messaging, it's a bit too heavy on the we hate kids vibe. I don't think being a parent is a moral failure. I hope that's not a hot take, even despite all of the parents who do a pretty terrible job of it. Anyway, you have to scroll past a lot of people saying yes before you see people saying, I'm not sure this needed the F word every other word, to be honest. If that's literally the way you talk to them, then yes, you're the a-hole. You made no attempt to communicate maturely like an adult before losing your temper. This person said, thanks for being an adult. The majority here seem to think it's okay for an adult to throw a tantrum like a moody toddler and yell obscenities at kids. Someone said, Reddit's got a real revenge boner lately. They're all about extreme responses to any minor slight. The real red flag is how they talk down about them being telemarketers, so dehumanizing. Yeah, no, I hate this post. I'm not going to grade it. I feel like it is fake, and if it's not fake, then obviously it's a situation where we don't need to pick a good guy. The parent letting their kid run around, super lame. You submitting a complaint, great. But you attempting to devalue the parent because of their job and you think you're better than them, super lame. And I'm going to be honest, this post doesn't seem any more mature than the child they were complaining about, so let's just move on. All right, let's talk about money. Am I the a-hole for suing my cousin for $6,000 to pay for my hearing aids after he threw me in the pool? My family is all on my cousin's side for this issue, and I wanted some outside judgment. So I'm going to be honest, this one is only tangentially related to parents. What with this person saying the whole family is on the cousin's side, but I actually brought it up for a different reason. I will take any and every opportunity to say, do not ever throw anybody into a pool. I hate that that has been normalized as like a funny prank thing. You're just supposed to laugh it off. Oh, ha ha. Why is this a thing at all? So this person was at a party and the cousin decided they were going to throw them in the pool because it would be funny to ruin their hair that they got done that day. And again, people who do this suck. I repeatedly told him to stop and put me down in a very serious and not playful at all tone. But anyways, they threw them in the pool anyway, their hearing aids were ruined. And afterwards, when I told him what happened, he basically said, whoops, didn't know you had hearing aids now. When I told him the cost of them and that he would have to replace them, he freaked out and said, no way. And I would have freaked out and said, yes way, what do you mean? My family didn't want me to make him pay for them because I significantly out-earned him and also everyone else in the family. He was in college at the time, barely making ends meet in a call center job. His girlfriend and him have a baby and they live in a 1-bedroom apartment. He refused to pay, so I took him to court. He refused to make payments after, so I took him back to court, and his wages are now being garnished for the maximum amount, which is 20% of his total wages. It pushed him over the edge of what he could afford, so he's had to work extra and drop out of college to be able to pay their rent. Okay. I mean, I was kind of on board until the part where he had to drop out of college just to afford their rent. I'm trying to approach this gingerly. I feel like maybe multiple things can be true in this case. He obviously still owes you $6,000, but if I was in this situation, I would kind of maybe see if I can put it on hold. Something about this is kind of my family is absolutely fuming at me. I think he made one bad choice after the other, and he has never given a sincere apology during this whole ordeal. Had he given a real apology after the incident and asked if he could wait till he finished school to pay me back, I would have been fine with it. But the entitled little prick is digging his feet in at every move. Am I the a-hole? Oh, buddy, 12,000 comments. That is pretty high for these kinds of posts. Okay, real talk. Grading for authenticity, I have no idea. This actually doesn't seem super fake to me. I'm going to give it a C. I really think the only way for me to react to this is to, again, just say what I would do. The truth of the matter is, hearing aids should not be $6,000 in the first place. I truly believe this isn't something that anybody should ever have had to pay for. And so even if it is the result of your own actions, having to struggle to make ends meet just to afford medical equipment, even if it's for somebody else, is kind of crazy, dude. That being said, it is the results of his own actions. But maybe if I read some comments, I will actually form a more coherent thought. Not the a-hole. The cousin messed up by not negotiating a payment plan with you that he could afford after he did it. A 20% garnish is a harsh way to learn his lesson, but he earned that lesson. Man, there's so much talk on Reddit about learning lessons. Do y'all ever realize that? It's not even just Reddit. I feel like it's so human to feel like someone messed up and you have to learn. And it's true. It's true. Please don't get me wrong. I completely agree that actions have consequences and the only way to actually grow is to learn that. But sometimes in moments like this, I just don't know how to feel about it. Not the a-hole. Your cousin ruined your $6,000 hearing aids despite your warnings. He refused to take responsibility or apologize. You gave him a chance before taking legal action. You know what? That is true. And the consequences are his own doing. You're just holding him accountable for something that directly impacts your life. That is something I want to be really clear about. I am not saying Oh, well, I don't care. He has a family, and so you're a bad person for making him pay for your hearing aids. You should just have hearing issues. That is not really my thought process at all. I think just money and what people can afford and medical things and justice, it all starts getting kind of complex kind of quickly. You can definitely choose to see it very black and white, very simply. If you break it, you buy it, you know? And I agree with that. And if it was me, I maybe would have handled it differently, but that doesn't make this person wrong. This person said, not the a-hole. Reminder, the court sided with you. Toxic families always protect an abuser and blame the victim. The family is basically saying OP should live in a state of limited hearing until he decides he can be bothered to throw her a bone. And I feel like this is a very strong case of people kind of projecting a lot of information into the original post. We don't know if OP actually is in a state of limited hearing. That's not something they said in the post. And in fact, this person was okay with waiting all the way until he finished school. So I don't think that's what's happening here. But I guess ultimately, the cousin is a 25-year-old grown man. He's not a baby. This isn't an accident. You purposely violated somebody's consent. And I guess really, I feel more sorry for his girlfriend and baby. But the fact that he didn't think about them before doing this is really just awful. So if you could allow me to, I guess, sum this all back up in my original point, don't throw people in pools. Anyway, this next one is about names as well. Am I the a-hole for telling my parents I'm not changing my name because of their name regret? So I, 16-year-old male, am my parents' youngest kid, and the only kid they named based off of what they liked versus what the family wanted them to name us. So this person's siblings were all given family names, but then the parents were like, you know what, enough. We're naming this next kid Sunny. Yeah, the quote-unquote girl version of Sunny, this person says. I don't care. I don't think Sunny is girly because it has a U versus an O. But anyway, this is a very well-adjusted 16-year-old boy. That is genuinely the best attitude to take towards anything related towards gender. Oh, this is a girl's name. Well, I'm a boy and it's mine, so must be a boy name. My parents started to regret my name when I was maybe 10. I don't remember exactly when, but I can remember being about 10, and my parents started sometimes calling me by my middle name and only stopping when I told them it was weird and I liked my first name. So anyway, this person outlines their parents gradually trying to erase their name, saying, hey, do you want a nickname? Saying, hey, some kids change their name before graduating high school because they want something more grown up. I was like, oh, I guess if people want that, it makes sense. Then I said, it must suck to hate your name. Anyway, they tried to tell him he looks like a James, nicknamed Jamie. I said I like Jamie, but prefer Sunny. They asked if I liked Luke. This is insane. They asked if he would let them consider changing his name, and he said no. They tried to give a reason, but this kid actually loved the way they talked about finding his name, and they said their feelings had changed. And they felt like the name being cute and light and full of hope wasn't great for going into my adult years. Well, isn't that just the most depressing, miserable thing you've ever heard? Child, your vibes are simply too good to be an adult. Anyway, last week, they got the paperwork for a legal name change and presented me with 3 choices and asked me to pick. They said they really didn't want to live with the guilt. Bro, it is not your name. Sunny is your kid, but that name belongs to him. You relinquish control. This is an insane post. I told them I'm not changing my name because of their name regret. I told them how I feel about my name is more important now. They told me I should at least think of their feelings and I should consider the future and whether I'll be taken seriously. Am I the a-hole? Bro, if I encountered a grown man named Sunny and I found out it was spelled like the sun, that would be the coolest thing ever. I would be like, wow, that is such a great name. And also, can I point out the obvious here? This is an extremely fitting name for this kid's personality. He's like, oh yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I get why some people change their name, but I like mine. You genuinely created a self-fulfilling prophecy by naming your child Sunny and having them grow up to be extremely level-headed and see the positivity in anything. Why in the world are you now trying to make it his problem that you are negative? Anyway, grading this for authenticity, I feel like it's real. I'm kind of tempted to give it like a B. All of my siblings are still teenagers, and this is exactly how they text. It's uncanny. And as far as whether or not this kid is an a-hole for wanting to keep his own name, I think we're obviously going to have to back him up here and say no. And thankfully, people are like, what the hell? Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your parents sound exhausting. They're reminding me of my grandparents these days, and I don't mean that in a good way. Oh, this kid is kind of insightful. It is really interesting that, like, they named him Sunny to be different from their stuffy family and their weird rules. And then as they got older, what happened? They just fell in line. This is just sad, this person says. OP, please go forth into your adult years being cute and light and full of hope. Yeah, this might actually be the craziest thing I've ever read on Reddit. And see, that is why I am always drawn to these videos. I don't need people to make up a crazy story for it to be the weirdest thing I've ever read. I am far more drawn to quiet stories of insanity. And so that's why I've decided to only focus on the most subtle posts. Am I the a-hole for ruining a child's life? Yeah, no, screw subtlety. This is Reddit, baby. So for our last post, we have quite the closer. Today, I started talking to an American. Oh, well, that's where you messed up. Pack it up, folks. It's over. Today, I started talking to an American mother while in A&E. I think this means the emergency room? In British? I don't know. Let me know if I'm right about this. Anyway, this mom mentioned that her daughter's name was Grain, so I assumed for a while that she was another mother who wanted something special to call her child. I feel like Grain is actually kind of a cute name though. Like, I would not name a child Grain. Maybe they want to never stand out, and so I don't want to set them up by giving them a crazy name. But I would name myself Grain, sure. Like, Grain is lit. Anyway, the mom said that the daughter was named after her great-grandmother, and that it's an Irish name. At this point, the alarm bells are ringing in my head because I've realized that the kid is called Grania. So if I read this with American English phonetics, then yeah, it does say grain. But I guess the point here is this is not American English. It's not English at all. It's pronounced Grania and is Irish. Oh God. So this person kinda sorta brings it up by saying Irish has such an interesting alphabet. How is her name spelled? And then they find out it is in fact spelled Grania. So I come up with what I thought was a pretty positive reply. I said, an old school name and a more modern pronunciation. I think that's a great way to pick names. So the mom is like, wait, what do you mean by pronunciation? And I said, well, in Ireland, they typically pronounce it like Grania. Also, I know I am saying this with the craziest American accent right now, and I am sorry. Anyway, the mom's face went red and she said I shouldn't have said the pronunciation was wrong in front of the kid because now she's going to grow up knowing that her name is wrong and feel bad about it. I apologized and restated it's a lovely name in both ways, and it kind of escalated, and the mom said I ruined her daughter's self-esteem and that her life was ruined by me saying her existence is wrong. I didn't say that, by the way. Grania, for context, was around 2 years old and completely unbothered by the conversation until her mother got angry at me. Am I the a-hole? All right, grading for authenticity, I'm gonna give this one a B as well. This is genuinely hilarious, but it's not really that far-fetched. That being said, I typically caution against bringing things up that people can't fix. The kid has already been named. Now, I mean, granted, it sounds like the mother overreacted. Obviously, nobody's life was ruined. And also, I mean, you could just start pronouncing her name correctly, but at the same time, you don't really get to tell people the correct way to pronounce their own name. So what I would say is I am much more concerned with little Grain's input here. It doesn't sound like she's old enough to have an opinion, but when she is, she's the only person whose opinion actually matters here. This person said, not the a-hole. You didn't embarrass the kid, you embarrassed the parent. You did the kid a favor by pointing this out early on so the mom can deal with it. She would have found out eventually. And it could have been when she was old enough to be legitimately embarrassed. And I agree with that, actually. You are going to run into somebody who knows what that name actually spells. And I'm not saying this person should have brought it up, but I don't know. This person says, look, not the a-hole, but also what were you trying to achieve? And that's really what I question here. If you see somebody's name is Grain and you realize it spells out Grania, do you have to say that? I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying I wouldn't, I guess. This person said, I really wish people would stop giving their kids Irish names that the parents have no idea how to pronounce, or in some cases, what the name means. And I agree with this. I'm not Irish, but yeah, don't do this with any name. Names are a big deal. How could you not do research into a name? That's like the most forward-facing part your child is going to have to deal with their whole life. A lot of times people may find out your name before they even see your face. This person said, I'm going against the grain and saying you're the a-hole. There's something about your post that's off-putting to me. Who cares? It's the kid's name and the way it's pronounced for her. I'm going to bow out of judging this one. I think a-hole is a very strong term for what has happened here. I just think this is kind of lame. I personally am not offended it on anyone's behalf here, but I do think this story is a good indicator of just because you can doesn't mean you should. This person says, you're the a-hole. Do you make a hobby of providing unnecessary feedback to strangers? This person said it was needed information. So people are kind of split here, and I understand why. Passive aggressive mean girl vibes from OP in this interaction. I also saw the whole projection occurrence once again. You're the a-hole for feeling compelled to tell someone how their name should be pronounced. This person said, this has happened to me with my last name. I don't care what the proper pronunciation is. My last name is pronounced the way I say it is. It's my name. Y'all, I can't stress this enough. Grain is 2. And this person wasn't even talking to her. I'm not even really sure that the kid was understanding this, but I don't know. I think a lot of times when people kind of take their feelings and put them onto the post, they are valid feelings. Don't ever tell somebody how to pronounce their own name. It's their name. I would never disagree with that. Also, just have basic respect. Pronounce people's names correctly. As somebody who constantly gets their name misspelled, I feel like there are a lot of real valid feelings that this post has kind of brought up in people. And I am not saying any of those are wrong. I have the same feelings. I just don't really know how many of them apply here, but I feel like that is completely up to the person interpreting it. And that's why I would like to hear what you think. So those are my takes on the situation. Let's do a quick recap. Am I the a-hole for asking another mom if her daughter needs help with her hair? It depends, but probably not. Am I the a-hole for barging into an office and cursing out children because they were running around? Obviously, but also this sounds like rage bait, so I don't care. Am I the a-hole for suing my cousin for $6,000? No, I don't think that you are. Your cousin was very much an a-hole for ruining your equipment and not listening to you, but that doesn't make the situation any less sad. Am I the a-hole for not changing my name because my parents thought it was too bright and sunny? Absolutely not. And am I the a-hole for ruining a child's life, aka saying the correct pronunciation of their name to their mother? I don't know, but this all could have been avoided if you didn't do that, so maybe that's something to think about. But I am very open to differing opinions because you can't really get these wrong once again. So I am of course excited to hear your take. I mean, this is the part of the video where a layman would ask you to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment, but I will ask you to enroll, evaluate the video, and submit your feedback because I'm of course running a 100% completely, totally, all the way, okay, maybe not really, somewhat unaccredited university. Probably. Just ask anybody in the student body and they'll confirm it for you. We're totally legit. And as for me, whether you'll see me in 24 hours or 24 months is honestly anyone's guess, but until then, thanks for watching. Your homework for today is to research your own name. Look up its etymology. It's probably more fascinating than you realize.